Cinema Siren.
Hi, I'm Cinema Siren. First-time director and screenwriter Maya Forbes brings us Infinitely Polar Bear. No, it is not a documentary of Disney nature. It's a fictionalized account of several years of her own childhood growing up with a manic-depressive father. The title comes from both her younger sister's and her own father's expression for his illness. As Cam, Maggie, Amelia, and Faith Stewart, it stars Mark Ruffalo as her father, Zoe Saldana as her mother, Forbes' own daughter Imogene Wolodarsky as her younger self, and Ashley Aufderheide as her younger sister. The story relates the time when her mother decided to go to business school to better support her family, believing it necessary after a particularly troubling time in her husband's illness. Ruffalo's character Cameron takes on the duties of stay-at-home dad while Maggie leaves Boston to study in New York City, only to come back on occasional weekend visits. Infinitely Polar Bear shows how the relationship between Cam and his daughters Amelia and Faith changes, and the struggles, lessons, and humor the kids experience on a daily basis. They have to navigate life with a father who can't always take care of them, or does so in very unconventional ways, and a largely absent mother who sees the evidence of her husband's parental commitment and incompetence just enough to breed constant worry and guilt. The film is likely to elicit a wide spectrum of emotions depending on the perspective and experience of the viewer. Those who have no basis for comparison personally will definitely actively enjoy it more moment by moment. All the leads are very strong, which is the only way to make the balance of sweetness and heartbreak that Forbes was after to work. Saldana rarely gets a chance to flex her acting muscles and expose fans to this sort of intimate portrayal. Imogene Wolodarsky as Amelia has an entirely new experience as an actress, and she's carrying off this mix of love and confusion, of anger and sympathy that's essential to her character perfectly. Ruffalo is great as always, but Saldana and Wolodarsky are the standouts. For those who have had experience with mental illness in their family as children, Infinitely Polar Bear might be an extremely difficult, if cathartic, experience. Certainly both discomfort and compassion will be a given, but how their own lives have been impacted, and the relationships that they have with their family member, whether it was damaged or inspired them or both, will determine how they receive the movie. In my exclusive interview with Maya Forbes, she says her greatest hope is it will help remove some of the stigma and get some people talking about mental illness. It's true that for children who are put in a position to care for their parents at a young age or are subjected to inconsistent, often unsafe environments, will nonetheless recall the funny, quirky, or absurd aspects of their experience, partly as a survival mechanism. The most interesting aspect of Infinitely Polar Bear is how writer-director Forbes brings both the perspective of her own childhood and retrospective insights as an adult and parent into the film. She's able to show both protective personal memories and more objective representation of her father's illness and how it got in the way of being a good parent in any traditional sense. For myself, it was a bit too close to home, but I still found it interesting and certainly poignant. Here is my interview with Forbes. So I'm here today with Maya Forbes, and she's the writer-director of Infinitely Polar Bear, which is kind of when I first heard that, I thought it was like one of those Disney nature movies.
Oh, great.
And then I better do a little research, and then I found out what it was about, and I loved the idea that it came from, it's all about your family.
Yes.
Fictionalized, essentially, because you've got Mark Ruffalo.
Yes.
And Zoe.
Yes.
And your daughter
And
is one of the kids. So it's basically about somebody who has bipolar, who tries to raise his kids in absence of his wife.
Yes.
And this is what happened to you when you were a kid.
Yes. So when I was 10 years old, when I was 6 years old, my father had a big breakdown and everything kind of fell apart in our lives. And then when I was 10 years old, we were struggling financially. My mother felt like she should go get her MBA. That was going to help her send my sister and me to good schools and improve all of our lives. And she left us in the care of our father, who had been bit by bit trying to pull his life back together. Mm-hmm. And he came and was our major caretaker.
And this is in the late 60s and early 70s, which is when there's still, mental illness still has a really long way to go
Yes.
In terms of acceptance and people being, it's a little bit like being an alcoholic. It's like a quiet, nobody wants to talk about it.
Yes.
And one of the things that I asked you last night was about you having it be a personal experience and putting it out there for people. And your answer was that you appreciate that people are able to look at it and talk about mental illness in their families. So and you were going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, I was going to say that you had said, how do you feel about the exposure, that you've exposed yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I think of it as sharing. I think of it not as exposing, but as sharing my story and hoping that other people will feel safe or compelled or to share their story.
Well, I believe that the only way you can teach is by example. So I think you're doing a great job in terms of that. What I wonder, though, is as a child, having the experience of having your father having bipolar disorder and experiencing it as a child, I think we try to kind of glorify it, glamorize it. We have memories that are really cheery. And then in retrospect, it's kind of messy and what the hell happened as a kid. So I'm assuming that you went through that transition as a person. How did you get back to it so that you could find the balance between the positive and the negative, the hard and the charming, like the experiences
Right.
Did you have to write it partly as a kid and partly as an adult, or how did you approach it?
Well, I guess I did write it partly as a kid, partly as an adult, but I wrote it as me right now. I mean, I sort of had I had my memories of being a child in that environment, and then I had my perspective as an adult. So I tried to bring those dual perspectives to it, because the kids, I definitely from a distance saw me and my sister and felt really sad for those two little kids. So I had a lot of sympathy for those two little kids, but then I also had a lot of sympathy for my father, and I think maybe it was that I was so sympathetic to all the characters, to all of their stories, that helped me get to the tone that I think you're talking about, to the revelation that you're talking about. I mean, I remember bad times, but I also think good things came out of it. Mm-hmm. And there were good times too. It wasn't all bad. I mean, as a family, we had a lot of fun together. My parents, even after they were divorced, if you saw them together, people would say, wow, your parents are the happiest parents. Your parents are so happy. And it's like, oh, they're divorced.
That's why they're happy.
But they just had a good time together. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of fun together. So there was that. It's just that my dad could not sustain anything. He could not sustain any mood or project or anything. So that was a big issue.
And in having your daughter play basically you in the film, I have two questions about that. First is, you knew that she wanted to act. You knew that she might be able to do it. What was the actual physical way that you discovered she could really pull it off?
Well, we had a table read
Okay.
when she was 9 years old. It was an early on table read just to hear the script for my own edification. And Mark Ruffalo and Zoe read their parts, and Imogene read the part of Amelia at the age of 9. And it was...
You're like, oh, she can do it.
Yeah, it was like a very, very long audition.
Wow, that's so
a 90-minute
cool.
audition, yeah.
And she must be very sophisticated because, she seems to have a lot of nuance. She really is one of my favorite aspects of the film. Zoe, who has the opportunity to show these acting chops you sometimes don't get to see with her because she plays such big movies sometimes. Yeah. I love her in the film, but I wonder whether, since your mother's still with you, what did she think of Zoe's portrayal and of the movie in general and how it came together?
Well, my mother, of course, is incredibly gratified that Zoe Saldana is
right.
playing her.
I'm so pretty.
Oh my God, I look amazing. But I think she thinks Zoe is luminous and loves her. She is luminous, and she brings this lovely energy and grace to her role, which I feel that my mother brought to her role in life. And my mother loves the film. She's been very supportive. She's been very supportive of it. It's very hard as a mother to kind of sit back and not come in with your agenda. And I don't know how, somehow she did it.
Zoe.
Well, Zoe, but even before Zoe, with the script, she was supportive without, I was girded for, oh gosh, here it comes. But she was always very supportive of it. I think she really saw it as a very personal expression and a wonderful piece of art that was not her story. It wasn't her telling her story. It was me telling my story.
I think the best thing about it is the balance that you find in the hard to watch aspect of, because I have some of the very similar experiences to you. It's hard to watch, but it's also, you do see all of those little memories that are like, all right, well, in retrospect, a little twisted, but funny still.
Yeah.
Really funny.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in watching it as you're directing it and you went like, that is it. That's it right there. You know what I mean? Like there's always this moment in a film as a director, I think, where you're like, oh, yeah. What was that for you?
That moment? When he comes home from the bar, got drunk, and the chains on the door, and the way that she's looking at him, just like, you're dead, Dad. I've got you. Mommy's on the phone. You know, I mean, that's what I love that. I just feel like my poor father. That's where I feel like, oh, that poor guy. He can't catch a break. Because I don't think. I mean, I guess for me, for instance, a big scene, like a big shocking scene, is when he smashes the door open. And that happened. It didn't happen in the context exactly. It's because everything was saying but that was a moment that happened, and it was a wake up to me. It wasn't. It was scary, but it was also. And I went, oh. That is a really crappy lock. And I'm not going to go around in life trying to be protected by a crappy lock. It was a good lesson.
Right.
It was a great lesson.
Which you just see in the movie, too.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for that lesson.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I'm really looking forward, as a female director, of course, because we're all about supporting that, is to see you and what you're doing next as well.
Thank you.
So may this be successful in the next thing and the next
I
thing.
hope so.
Yes. Thank you
Then
so
there's
much.
going to be a bad one. There always is.
Well, yeah, but as long as they keep hiring you, then you're cool.
Yeah, that's fine, right?
You're cool.
As long as
we'll
the other ones have been good enough that I can get another
We'll
chance.
keep interviewing, we'll
Okay.
keep coming, we'll keep supporting, because
Great.
you got to do that.
Yes, thank
So,
you. I really appreciate
thank you so
that.
much.
We definitely need it. We women directors.
Yes. Remember Hollywood. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
While I would have wanted a clear direction towards humor or drama and felt uncomfortable for the film's entirety, other viewers will likely find it fascinating. I applaud Forbes for a well-crafted script and the cast for their very fine acting, and I enjoyed the splicing together of old movies shot by Forbes' own father into the film, which made it feel all the more personal and authentic. 3 out of 5 stars. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to Cinema Siren for the latest studio and indie movie reviews. Now, go give your dad a hug and go find a new favorite film. Thanks.